Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Lazy Podcast. I do believe this is episode 9 and we're coming a long way, seems like, with these episodes. I know they've been pretty far from each other, but um so in this episode I thought we're gonna talk about How I Met Your Mother. How I Met Your Mother is, in my opinion, right up there with the greatest of all time, like, The Office, Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, but is also up there with the worst endings of all time. Sort of like, again, Game of Thrones, Lost, maybe. The Office, I would put up there as well. Um, so How I Met Your Mother is one of those things where I watch like regularly, at least once a year. So I've watched the whole series about 5 or 6 times by now. And I did not actually start watching it until it was pretty late. Till it was like maybe season 6 or season 7. I think season 7. So that was like around 2012 because it showed it end in 2014. So if you don't know, How I Met Your Mother is a show with 9 seasons. So it's an American sitcom created by Carter Bays and Craig Thomas, premiered on CBS in 2005, and um, it's loosely based on their 20s when they were living in New York, and and having loads of adventures and stuff like that. So, as I said, it's loosely based in their 20s, which is fine. It's a very, very interesting premise, and I think How I Met Your Mother, it was one of the last shows, like typical sitcoms that uses laugh tracks and all of that, shot in a sound stage, I think. So How I Met Your Mother was one of those last shows like that. I think it was what was the other one called? Big Bang Theory, that did laugh tracks as well. I haven't seen that, but I'm pretty sure I've read some reviews and all that. It's still using that. It was using that outdated method of laugh tracks and all that. In Personally, I have never been a fan of laugh tracks. But How I Met Your Mother, I think they weren't as distinct and as annoying as in other shows. For example, in Friends, for if you watch that, you can clearly see that there's like a after some they say something, and then there's like a certain point where the writers think that this is funny and that you should laugh. So there's like a pause for like a few seconds, and I never liked that. But How I Met Your Mother does that, but it does a bit more, like with more finesse, let's say, because it's a more modern show as well. Friends was um in the early and late 90s, I think. So yeah. So just to get into How I Met Your Mother again, first season we are introduced to old Ted, voiced by Bob Saget. In the year 2030, he sits down his daughter and his son and tells them he's gonna tell them the story of how he met their mother. Very interesting so far. So the story begins in 2005 with Ted, played by Josh Radnor, as um, I think most of the cast were pretty unknown before they did How I Met Your Mother. I'm pretty sure, but except Neil Patrick Harris, maybe he was already like pretty famous at the time. Um, so Ted, then played by Josh Radnor, a single 27-year-old architect living in Manhattan with his two best friends from college, Marshall Erickson, played by Jason Segel, a law student, and Lily Aldrin, Alison Hannigan. Uh, Alison Hannigan is the girl from the American Pie movies as well. A kindergarten teacher who have been dating for almost 9 years, and then Marshall proposes. Their engagement causes Ted to think about, marriage and finding his soulmate and all of that. Much of the discuss of his self-appointed best friend Barney, played played by Neil Patrick Harris. Ted begins his search for his perfect mate and then meets a young reporter, Robin Scherbatsky, played by Cobie Smulders. Kobe Smulders before How I Met Your Mother, I don't think I was aware of her. I know she's been in a couple of the Marvel movies, and she was in that Jack Reacher, I think, Jack Reacher movie with Tom Cruise, pretty sure. Um, so then Ted quickly falls in love with Robin. However, Robin doesn't want to rush into a relationship. Blah blah blah, leading all of that. And then, as her wedding date approaches, Lily like begins to wonder if she's missed, you know, anything in her life, and if she gets married, she'll, get to be not to be an artist, which is her dream and all that. And she leaves for San Francisco, trying to figure out who she is, outside the relationship. And the season ends with um, Ted being with Robin, and then Marshall and Lily being broken up, and Barney being Barney. um, so far, I think season one it wasn't met like critically. It wasn't the best of them. I still think season one is decent. It does what it's supposed to do. It gets you into the characters and all that. Um, so yeah, season two picks right up, after Ted and Robin are now a couple, and a heartbroken Marshall tries to continue his life without Lily, realizing she's not an artist. Lily returns to New York. She's reunited with Marshall, and the season culminates in their marriage. Season two, Barney loses a slap bet. We remember that. Oh, my phone. Sorry about that. So Barney loses a slap bet, which permits Marshall to slap him in the face 5 times at any given time in the future, whenever Marshall chooses. And this little like slap bet, um, you know, it's like causes many many laughs, and it's a running joke for many seasons, which is it's decent, I think. Barney puts a one-man show. It is revealed that Barney has a gay black brother played by Wayne Brady. Barney believes that Bob Barker is his father, and takes a trip to California to be contestant on The Price is Right. Everyone discovers Robin was a Canadian teen pop star, so let's go to the mall. Decent running joke as well. Um, and then the music video is viewed by Barney hundreds of times. In the season finale, so when the wedding happens, Ted reveals to Barney that he and Robin have been broken up for some time due to their conflict views on marriage. They didn't tell anyone in order to avoid taking attention away from Lily and Marshall's wedding, blah blah blah. And the season ends with Barney excited to the perspective of Ted and himself being single guys again. And I think the season ends with like it's gonna be legend, and then that season ends, and then season three starts with Dairy again, which is a decent little thing to do. Season two is, I think, by far way better than season three. So I'm just very quickly gonna go through the rest of the seasons, because there is 9 seasons of this. Um, the one thing that everyone can agree about this TV series is that um the ending, the ending was terrible. They should have they should have had way more mother on it. And then we'll get into that when we get there. But a lot of things that I want to talk about. I wanted to make a video about this, but I quickly realized that this would be way long for a video. So an episode of the podcast, I think it's more appropriate. So season three, Robin returns from a trip to Argentina, and must adjust to life as just her friend. Marshall and Lily decide to move out on their own, falling in love with a place they can't afford. Ted tells his children that he met their mother through a story with her yellow umbrella. Okay, that's pretty much what happens in season three. Season four, Robin finds out about Barney's love for her, which she continuously reciprocates. Excuse me. Ted decides that he's done being an architect and finally decides to teach architecture classes, which is the finale ends with Ted stating that the mother was in the first class he went into. It's I think this is like the first hint that we get at the mother. And I remember when I finished season 4, I was so excited. I was like, "Oh, are we gonna finally see her?" No, no, you do not see her. So season 5 starts. Ted impulsively buys a dilapidated house after his mother's wedding. Both Ted and Barney jeopardize Robin's new relationship by professing their love for her. Robin is dating Dawn, I'm pretty sure. Meanwhile, after spending a weekend sleeping in twin beds, Marshall and Lily decide to get twin beds at home. This was ridiculous. It was very funny. Um, and then So yeah, Robin gets a new anchor show. Come on, get up, New York. So Ted starts his new job in the middle of the classroom in which the mother was present. We never saw her. And then Barney uses a playbook to score with women. Marshall uses his fourth slap on Barney. Yeah, pretty standard stuff. Oh. And season 6. Um, Ted sees Cindy again with a girl. So Cindy is the mother's roommate, as we find out later. Um, but turns out to be Cindy's girlfriend. The room. Well, Ted thought that it's going to be the roommate that he's going to see, but no, it's not. James and Barney find an unsent letter to Sam Gibbs, which later turns out it's James's father. Um, Robin is struggling with Dawn, and because at the end of season 5, Robin was offered a job in San Francisco, I think, and she turned it down to be with Dawn, and then they called Dawn, and Dawn accepted the job like straight away, and Robin is not happy, obviously. She gets a new co-anchor, Becky. Boats, boats, boats. Um, and Ted is offered to build a new Goliath National Bank. Design previously scrapped new headquarters, but accepts it later. GNB headquarters is supposed to be built over an old building, the Arcadian. Uh, um, and then with Zoe, so Ted gets into a rivalry with Zoe. Zoe is the captain's wife, and she's trying to prevent the Arcadian. And then they later date. Blah blah blah. Ted was also left in the previous season. I did not mention this. Ted was also left in the altar by what was her name? Boo, I forgot. The girl that he was left in the altar, basically. Uh, I'm just quickly going through the season. So season 7. Um, Fish, Marston and Lily preparing for a new child. Barney and Robin dating other people, and Ted still waiting for true love. Robin realizes that she still has feelings for Barney, but ends up trying to get back together with Nora. But he ends up trying to get back together with Nora. This is season 7. Season 8. Uh, I think from season 8 and 9. They're not as funny. They're more of like, you've been following these characters for so many years, so you want to know what's happening basically. But I don't think they're as funny later on. Season 8, he meets Queen. Barney meets Queen, a stripper. Blah blah blah. Queen finds out that Barney and Robin used to date and breaks up with them. Robin assures her that she doesn't have any feelings for Barney because she's dating Nick. um, and then Barney designs a prenup. Like all the documents that she has to sign before the marriage. Lily and Marshall are trying to find a nanny for Marvin and all of that. And Marshall is trying to be an environmental lawyer. All of that, okay. And season 9, season 8, sorry. Um, Ted attempts to cancel his engagement over Robin and Barney getting engaged by planning their wedding. He already has a date set, which is May 25th, 2015, and the place is going to be the wedding venue where Victoria almost got married. Throughout the episode, Ted does his best to convince Robin into hiring a DJ, and then eventually, in a flash forward, I think a week before the wedding, Ted runs into Cindy and her girlfriend on the subway. He explains that the band had cancelled, and Cindy tells him that her roommate, who we know is Ted's future wife, can play at the wedding. 1 week later, we see Robin dancing happily with her dad at the reception, and Ted staring across the room, and the mother playing bass. Is it bass? Yeah, bass, 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 and smiling at her. I think this is one of the earlier times that we see the mother. Um, and then Ted starts dating a 20-year-old, which we later find out that it's Barney's sister. Robin is frustrated on new engagement ring is making her invisible to men. Ted meets a girl on the subway who is reading the same book, and turns out she's a psycho. Uh, and then Barney breaks into Robin's apartment to read her journal to find out who the person is. He flies to Canada to her ex-boyfriends, blah blah blah. Barney returns back to the apartment with a black eye, okay. Jeanette is Ted's girlfriend and she's super crazy. Um, Lily is also displeased because she has stolen a valuable crystal from the captain. Okay, we know all of that. And then season 9, which also is the final season. I'm just gonna go through a very quick synopsis. For season 9. Uh, Ted and Lily are driving to Farhampton Inn. Lily gets annoyed with Ted and just leaves the road trip. We later find out that she wanted to have a smoke. She doesn't yet know that she's pregnant. um, so season 9 is we see everyone else meeting the mother. So we see Lily, we see Marshall, we see Robin, we see Barney meeting the mother, but except for Ted. So we didn't get as much time with the mother in real time as we should have gotten because we waited 9 seasons for that. 9 seasons we wait, and we do not get. We get the occasional scene with Ted here and there, and we get a few flash forwards as well. But real time, the present time of the show, we do not get so much time with her. We spend a lot of time, in and around the wedding and how they're all trying to get to the wedding. She picks up Marshall and Marvin in the car. She meets with Lily in the train. She meets with Barney in that shop. And I don't remember where she met Robin, but I think she met Robin somewhere. Um, and then that scene, probably one of my favorite scenes the whole series, is the scene where Ted and Tracy meet at the train platform. I think is a masterpiece of a scene, and it's just if we could have had stuff like that throughout the season, it would have been amazing. The series finale was so hated from everyone that the creators were forced to cut an alternate version of that just because people hated it so much. In the alternate cut, we see Ted going around, and because eventually we do see that the mother is like a terminally ill, so she is going to die. and Ted is like always telling her stories, about the Barney and about the bar and the stuff that they did, which is a pretty decent moment. We do get one or two episodes, I think, with Tracy's backstory. So we see her in the apartment with the other girl that Ted was dating for a couple days. Um, and then we see that her boyfriend died when she was very young, and then we see that another boyfriend that she was dating when she was going to Barney and Robin's wedding, he proposed, but she she wasn't ready for that. And then she met Ted, and then everyone agrees that her and Ted would be great together. Blah blah blah. Um, and here lies my problem. As I said, with the mother, we should have gotten so much more. The show is called How I Met Your Mother. We needed to see the mother more. We needed to have more episodes with her, present time with Ted, her chemistry uh, with Ted, Josh Radners, and Kristen Milioti, the actress who played the mother, Tracy McConnell, was brilliant. It was so beautiful. The actress who plays Tracy is a great actress. I think she nailed the part. She was funny, she was charming, she was just a super likable person, which is like what the mother was supposed to be. But we waited 9 seasons and we didn't get a lot of her. And then the other thing is we spent the whole season for Barney and Robin's wedding, right? We go here and there. We've got different episodes with different characters all around the wedding. And then on the series finale, they decide to break them up, to have them get a divorce off screen, and then just be like, yeah, that's it. This is not a failed marriage. This is a marriage that only lasted 3 years. That is such bullshit. Honestly, that is such bullshit. We spent 9 years and 9 seasons, like, watching, and for it to end like that, and the mother just dies. And third, the third, which is the most important problem for me, is how Ted at the end ends up with, yes, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll please, fucking Robin, right? We, time and time again, throughout the 9 seasons, we get told that Ted and Robin do not belong together, time and time again, time and time again. And as a viewer, you think that, yeah, they do not belong together, so there must be someone else more fitting than Robin. And then when that someone else comes more fitting than Robin, they just kill her off in a couple of episodes. And we didn't, it's not like we got a lot of episodes with her anyway. So it's just super annoying, super annoying. um, and then when I think this happened because they had a planned ending from the beginning. So I did read somewhere that uh, um, the shots with the kids, they were all shot in the first season because the kids would grow up and they wouldn't look the same. The shots with old Ted, and that means that they all along they wanted to end Robin, um, to end Robin to end um to end up with Ted. Um, so what happens is, it's like Vince Gilligan, for example, in Breaking Bad. His initial plan was to kill off Aaron Paul, Aaron Paul's character, Jesse Pinkman, after the first season. And he quickly realized that that would have been a mistake, and how great that turned out. Jesse Pinkman turned out one of the better characters, one of the best characters throughout the series. And that was mainly due to, of course, the great writing and all that. But Aaron Paul became that character, like he nailed that part. So I think they should have changed that. They should have changed their initial ending. They should have done something more, and they shouldn't have to cut an alternate ending or whatever that is, because the ending was so hated. So this is it about How I Met Your Mother. Great series. I enjoyed it so much. I do watch it at least once a year, all of it again. I've watched it about 5 or 6 times, as I said in the beginning. In my opinion, is right up there with all the great shows of all time. It's funny, it's charming, characters are brilliant, as like characters that you can relate to. These were my three main problems with it, and it's mainly with the ending. I think it Ted did deserve a better ending than just ending up with Robin. That for 9 seasons we repeatedly got told that they do not belong together. Um, and we should have gotten more of the mother because the show is called How I Met Your Mother, and we hardly got her. And we shouldn't have spent a whole season of Barney and Robin's wedding, and then they just get a divorce off screen. So their wedding lasts about one episode, I think, sort of like that. Um. So anyway, this is the episode 9 of the Lazy Podcast. Um. Make sure you leave a like and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this episode. If you're listening from podcasts, from Spotify or anywhere else, make sure you follow so you don't miss any future episodes. And I will see you in the next one.